Welcome to my next edition of How Many People Will I Piss Off Today? Probably not that many. I hold a lot of consoles in high regard. That doesn't mean I'm not going to upset a decent chunk of you. Our categories start at 100% goated, also goated but a little less goated, good consoles, bad but it has some bright spots, important but it's actually trash, and then at the very bottom, actual trash. We're going in order by release date, and we're starting with the Coleco Telstar Pong. It's Pong. Any console that is only able to play one game automatically can't be goated. And let's face it, Pong, it's a mid game at best. But this is super important for the history of video games. It's important, but actually trash. Moving on to the first console that people actually consider a game console. It had multiple games. It had this doohickey of a controller. And with games such as Simon Says, Ski, tennis, table tennis, I think it's clear to say why this didn't really catch on, like, at all. Therefore, it's important, but actually trash. Seriously, what were you thinking with that controller? On to the Atari 2600, the console that basically brought gaming into the realm it is today and also low-key almost killed gaming at the same exact time. With games such as Adventure, Asteroids, Centipede, and what a lot of people consider the worst game of all time, E.T. E.T. is a game that they overproduced so much, but it got out that it was a terrible game. There's a story of like tens of thousands of copies just being buried in the desert somewhere. But this actually had like real games on it. It had like Breakout, Dig Dug, Mario Bros. Also, the controller is actually starting to look like something you can actually use. It's still a bad console, but it has some bright spots. We're already jumping into the big boys. That's right, the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Famicom. The controller, simple, elegant, beautiful. The games, Super Mario Brothers, Metroid, The Legend of Zelda, Duck Hunt, Tetris, Yoshi, Ghosts and Goblins, golf. I think it's a goated system, but I can't put it in 100% goated for one singular reason. If I were locked in a room and someone slid the window open and was like, hey, you're gonna be in here for a while. Do you want something to entertain yourself? I am not ever going to ask for an NES. Goated, but not 100% goated. The Sega Master System, the wannabe NES. It had a few decent games. It had like Prince of Persia, Phantasy Star, and the first Sonic the Hedgehog. It could not hold a candle to the NES. I think it has some bright spots, but overall, it was a pretty bad console. The original Game Boy, a surprisingly great handheld console, especially when you think at the time they basically had like nothing to go off of. They had the Game & Watch. I'm not putting the Game & Watch on this list, by the way. Besides that, handheld gaming was basically not a thing because all of a sudden you could play a lot of NES games repurposed for handheld consumption. Pokemon came out for this bad boy first, but altogether, I think it was just a good console because there's no backlight. You have to be in like broad daylight or have like a light right next to you to play this thing. I believe that it is a good console, but there's definitely room for improvement. The Commodore 64, it was a terrible console, but it had the first trigger ever in a controller, which is important for history. Important for history, but it's trash. Next up in the handheld stuff, the Sega Game Gear. It had many good games. It had Sonic, Prince of Persia, I know it had Mega Man, Bubble Bobble, Mortal Kombat. The Game Gear was actually a solid competitor with the Game Boy. I do believe the Game Boy probably has a slightly better list of games, but the Game Gear had straight up just better graphics, and it was already in color. I'm putting the Game Gear also in good consoles. The Sega Genesis, the controller, more buttons than ever, like 4 more. It's crazy. The graphics, looking better than ever. Sonic, more games than ever. NBA Jam, Mortal Kombat, X-Men, a lineup of games that could really truly start rivaling Nintendo. I believe it's up there with the NES. The SNES, the Super Nintendo System, or the Super Famicom. Nintendo did not like that Sega was catching up to their game, and they fought back. This was an absolute beast. Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Yoshi's Island, Street Fighter 2, Chrono Trigger, Donkey Kong Country 2, Secrets of Mana, Super Metroid, hella Mega Man games, Donkey Kong Country 3. A truly goated system. This is exactly where I believe Nintendo started hitting their stride. A great system across the board, not to mention, for some odd reason, this controller feels so good to hold and play with. The Panasonic 3DO. I do not like this console for one specific reason. When it came out, I believe it was $500. $500 in 1993 for a game console is absolutely absurd, especially when you figure out that the games on this bad boy, because let's face it, the controller's not getting any better or worse, are kind of just trash. There were ports for like Wolfenstein 3D and Doom, which give it some bonus points, but all around, this console is pretty trash. Once again, I think it's important for history to learn your lessons, but it's a trash console. As a kid, I would probably be absolutely livid if I received a Panasonic 3DO over a SNES. Continuing the trend of absolutely failed consoles, the Sega Saturn. By this point, Sega was holding on to the Sega Genesis so hard, they just kept on releasing more and more attachments for your Sega Genesis that people were burnt out. People were tired of Sega's shenanigans. And all of a sudden, after you just bought your Sega CD, now you're gonna have to buy your Sega Saturn. They had real games like House of the Dead, Duke Nukem 3D, Tomb Raider. But this console sold a paltry 9 million. You get a new console come out, one, it's $400, and two, the controller is like the exact same as the Sega Genesis. I guess I could understand if you already thought that this was peak controller design, but there's no way. No way. It's bad, but it has some bright spots. This is when I start to believe that consoles are getting extremely serious. The Sony PlayStation, or as we know it now, the PS1. The controller is basically the same thing that they use today. Granted, I know I think the original PlayStation controller wasn't actually like this. So you didn't have the analog sticks. Gosh, you have the first Gran Turismo, the first Grand Theft Autos, the first Resident Evils. Final Fantasy is getting extremely good. Spyro, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Crash, Silent Hill, Spider-Man. Yes, Sony still had the rights to Spider-Man even back then. Legends of Dragoon, I need to say that for my own self because that's my favorite PlayStation game. The Sony PlayStation is 100% goated. The Apple Pippin Atmark. What a name. And also, what a controller. Why is it a boomerang? You're nothing. You never will be anything. You'll never accumulate to anything. You're forgettable. No one even knows Apple ever had a game system. You're trash. Our first actual thing in actual trash. What? Wait, what? Is that back-to-back trash? Who the heck needs a whole numpad on your controller? Atari, why did you think this was a good idea? The Atari Jaguar CD. One, the Atari Jaguar already didn't sell good at all, and they decided, hey, no, we need a CD attachment now. That's what's gonna save our console. Also, don't you know, Sony already got the controller right. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Trash. Nintendo, now being a little late to the 3D game space with the Nintendo 64, doesn't slow them down at all. Let's face it, if I put us back in that hypothetical where like you're trapped in a room and someone slides the window open, they're like, hey, you can have a game console in here, but that's it. Select any one that you want. There are a lot of people that will say Nintendo 64. Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, Donkey Kong 64, Pokemon Stadium, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo and Kazooie, Star Fox 64. Obviously, the game lineup is already pretty goated. Even though some of those games I listed I do think are a little overrated, but that's okay because most of them aren't. So what if the controller is kind of stupid? That's iconic. I feel like my house would get burnt down if I put this anywhere but 100% goated. Next, we have the saddest console on this list, the Sega Dreamcast. You know, this thing had the first ever internet and like online play of any console back in 1998. Were the games really that great to write home about? The ones that were got ported to other consoles. You have to remember, this console was $200. It was cheap. That little center thing in the middle of your controller made it so you could play your games on the go. As accessories, it had the first motion control controller. It had a keyboard and mouse attachment. This thing was unbelievably innovative. I think the Dreamcast is a good console. I don't think it's goated. Certainly many people will think that the Dreamcast is goated. I just don't think it has the game library to back it up. A good console. I can't believe you're looking at this purple and gray masterpiece but ruining the feng shui with that bright red subscribe button below this video. That's crazy. Handhelds are back and they're better than ever. The Game Boy Color. Still, your screen does not light up to play it in the dark. However, you can attach a little light to it now. The Game Boy Color was actually the first console that I know I got a new game one day, and that's all I did the entire day was play that game. And it wasn't even Pokemon. It was Yu-Gi-Oh! It has one giant major goated game that came out for it, obviously being Pokemon. Do I think it is goated though? Honestly, the only reason I would ever pick up my Game Boy Color again would be to play Pokemon. But one singular game that basically encompasses the entire console can't make it goated, but it could certainly make it goated enough. Welcome to the group, buddy. The PlayStation 2. In my head, honestly, my brain is telling me, yeah, it is easily 100% goated. But for some reason, in my heart, it's telling me it's not 100% goated. Truly, the reason for that is I still have my chunky PS2, this one on the left, and I have literally never hooked it up in decades. Do I believe PS2 games are trash? No, obviously not. Kingdom Hearts 2, Gran Turismo 4, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Final Fantasy X, Dragon Quest VIII, God of War 1, 2, and 3. All those games I just listed, I have played, love, own. I haven't touched my PS2 in years. Actually, all 6 of the consoles in the goated category, I have touched in the last 10 years. This I have not. Let me make this clear. For the people, I'm putting in 100% goated. But me, I don't think it belongs there. Honestly, I do not believe it belongs there. I cannot lie to you. As consoles that are 20 years or older, the Nintendo GameCube is my favorite old console. It has the best Nintendo controller that they ever put out. And it also has some of the most fun and replayable games that Nintendo has ever put out. In my personal opinion, the best Mario parties. I enjoy Mario Sunshine a lot more than a Mario 64. Unlike all these other consoles that are in the goated section, I could say I played this console within like the last month. The best Super Smash Brothers that Nintendo ever created. The second best Mario Kart ever created, being Double Dash. Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Metroid Prime, Pokemon Colosseum, Pokemon XD, Animal Crossing, Kirby's Air Ride, a game that I've been waiting for a sequel for so long, or at least a re-release on some console. Kirby Air Ride would be like one of the best games to port to a Nintendo Switch. Hidden sleepers like Lost Kingdoms, like 1 and 2, made by a small indie developer known as From Software, you know, the same people that made Dark Souls. And all the Mario sports games were so good. It's actually a shame that this was a flop in Nintendo's eyes, because the Nintendo GameCube games, legitimately, I believe is peak Nintendo game design. Except for the Pokemon games. Modern Pokemon games are definitely better than Colosseum and XD. They're extremely slow-paced games. If I'm putting the PS2 as 100% goated for the people, I'm putting the GameCube as 100% goated for me. This one's gonna pain me a little bit. Although I just geeked out on a Nintendo product, I'm typically associated as an Xbox boy. I love Halo. It's my favorite game series of all time. I love the Forza series. Gears of War, they need to stop producing that game. The original Xbox had bangers. It had the Elder Scrolls Morrowind, the game that was before Oblivion, which was before Skyrim. I feel like I need to explain that because I feel like a lot of people don't know the order of the Elder Scrolls series. Fable, an incredible game that for some odd reason Microsoft and Xbox just gave up on. And it also still had all the great games that like made PS2 great. Like it still had Grand Theft Auto. It had your Need for Speeds. It had your Star Wars Battlefront. It had your Star Wars Battlefront 2. And this controller was actually surprisingly comfortable. Xbox Live kind of changed the game. I still believe at this point, Xbox was still kind of ahead of the game. Internet wasn't that great in 2001, but because they were so ahead, the online experience for their next console was original Xbox, great console. Superb console. Dude, Fusion Frenzy? What a game. I think it's still goated, but not 100%. Gosh, that really hurts me to put PS2 above the Xbox, but whatever. The Game Boy Advance. Consoles are getting cracked out now. Because I don't have the Game Boy Advance SP on here, but consider this as a combination of the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Advance SP, because the SP, adding that backlight, oh my gosh. When I was just a wee little lad, my bedtime went from being at 9 o'clock to staying up till like basically 12. Up until my parents found out that I was playing my Game Boy underneath my bed and they were like, you need a good night's rest for school tomorrow. No, Mom, I don't learn anything there anyways. We live in the United States of America. I'm starting to realize that I bought a lot of these consoles for literally one game. Looking at the games for the Game Boy Advance, it is actually the same exact scenario as the Game Boy Color. Since we are now in the future, we can look at these consoles in hindsight, in their heyday. What games were the people playing? And it was Pokemon. I'm not saying that there's not incredible games. The Golden Sun games are so good. If you have never played them, get yourself an emulator and somehow acquire it legally. But I don't think it's 100% goated. But come on, it certainly is goated. 2001 was kind of a crazy year for consoles. You get the Game Boy Advance, the GameCube, and the Xbox all in the same year? That's crazy. Next, we have the Nokia N-Gage. I don't know if you guys remember these things, but they advertised them a crap ton. I remember walking into my local GameStop, checking the little $5 bin or lower. Oh my gosh, that was so great. Either way, you would walk up to the cashier and off to the left, you would just see an advertisement for this thing. And it was like, ooh, you want a game, but also talk to people on the phone? Get this Nokia thing. Also, knowing Nokia, this thing's probably built like a brick, and every single one that they have ever produced is still probably working to this day. Now, that being said, it's a atrocious game system, and probably also not that great of a phone either. Nokia, you are super ahead of the game. Mobile games just will have their heyday later, just not when you released this in like 2003. The Nokia N-Gage is actual trash. The Nintendo DS, I know we're going through a little bit of a handheld gauntlet right now, but mid-2000s, just for some reason, everyone wanted to release a new handheld console. Don't ask me why. Unlike most of the other Nintendo handheld consoles released, I don't think this one is plagued as much to being just a thing to play Pokemon on. Because for the first time in any Nintendo's handheld career, including the original Game Boy, Pokemon is not its #1 selling game. It's actually New Super Mario Brothers. But on top of that, you have Nintendogs, you have Brain Age, you have the best darn Mario Kart a handheld has ever seen. As handheld consoles go, I believe this one is the best one. It is 100% goated. Moving on to the PSP, it was nice that Sony was trying to challenge Nintendo in the handheld market. And not only that, it almost swayed me. Because as a kid, I asked for one of these. And right after I got one of these, one of my friends had one of these. And we were playing the same game, Need for Speed Most Wanted. And his looked so much better than mine. And I was like, wait, did Nintendo rip me off? The PSP is a good console. I don't think it's goated. It's still a good console. The Xbox 360, I hinted at it earlier. I believe this is when online gaming became real. Halo 3, all of the Call of Duties, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, World at War. Am I still mad that I spent $150 on a Kinect? Absolutely. Do I believe that the online gaming scene should be free for all and then no one should need to buy an online subscription to play with your friends? Also correct. Peak controller design. To this day, I still believe the Xbox 360 controller is probably the best controller ever. That, John, is 100% goated. No question in my mind. The PS3, as a direct competitor to the Xbox 360, obviously, I was raised to absolutely hate everyone that had one of these things. The PlayStation Network did get hacked and a lot of people's information did get stolen. We're also getting to the point where a lot of the consoles share the same games. I think the thing that really sets the Xbox 360 apart from the PS3 was honestly the Xbox Live community. I think the PS3 is goated, but not as goated. The Nintendo Wii, a money printer for Nintendo. Honestly, if I was judging the Wii on just Wii titles, I would probably put it in the good console tier. But I lied earlier. I said I plugged in my Nintendo GameCube to play it like a month ago. That was a lie. I don't have a GameCube. I sold it because this can play every single GameCube game that I want. The only reason that I believe the Wii is goated. Can the PlayStation 3 play all PS2 and PlayStation 1 games? I have to look that up. Okay, so it turns out only the first models of the PS3 can play PS2 games. I know the Xbox 360 can play a lot of original Xbox games, but this thing can literally just play every single GameCube game. And you could plug GameCube controllers into it. Oh! Yes, I really just like the GameCube a lot. So I believe this is 100% goated just because you get a Wii and a GameCube together. The one thing that the Wii has 100% on lock, the best Mario Kart game. Mario Kart Wii, chef's kiss. I'm putting the Wii 100% goated because 1, it can play all of Nintendo GameCube games, 2, it has the best Mario Kart ever, and 3, the soundtrack to nearly everything is incredible. The Nintendo 3DS. I have this console for one reason and one reason only. Pokemon. I think the original 3DS model, 100% gimmick. It was the first handheld console to get a Super Smash Brothers game though. That's pretty cool. I don't know. It just didn't break any new ground. It kind of was just Nintendo DS, but now you need to buy a different one. I guess they would need to upgrade the internals to it, make it a little bit more powerful, make it so like gaming companies actually could produce games for them. This little stick thing here, I actually love this thing. Joypad, maybe? Is that what it's called? I have no idea what you would even call this little nub thing. Next we have the PlayStation Vita. Now I'm gonna be totally honest. I know nothing about this console. I have never held one ever in my life. I have never touched one of these things. I will say for every single one of these consoles on this list, I have played their games in some way, shape, or form. I bet you it is actually probably an amazing console because I just remember my little baby eyes looking at a PSP for the first time and I was like, wow, a handheld console can look this good? I wonder if the PS Vita would do that to me as well. I'm gonna put it in good consoles, but I'm letting you know I know nothing about it. Next we have the Wii U. The console, in my mind, that is the most gimmick console in the history of ever. I'm actually surprised, flabbergasted, that Nintendo would release this product. The gamepad doesn't feel good to use. The games are perfectly okay. It just blew my mind that Nintendo was still like, you know what people loved 6 years ago? Motion controls, and that wasn't a gimmick at all. Motion controls, they're here to stay, baby. So anyways, I think there are good games for this. Not Smash 4. Smash 4 is actually garbage. It's my least favorite one in the entire series. It's super slow and does not reward good gameplay at all. So anyways, I put it in the category of bad, but it has some bright spots. Because it has Xenoverse. Not Xenoverse. Oh, Shulk. I can't remember Shulk's game. I can't remember what it's called. Oh, it also had Monster Hunter Stories, which Monster Hunter Stories good game too. Also, I think Nintendo missed the memo. This generation was supposed to have only black consoles, and black consoles are always the way to go. The PS4, and I know a lot of people are like, this man's an Xbox fanboy. He won't like the PS4 at all. So what if when it gets older, it starts sounding like it's about to take off? This generation of gaming was won by PlayStation and the PS4. I think the PS4 is actually 100% goated. Might it be 100% goated because of the faults that Microsoft and Nintendo had during this generation? That helps a little bit, but it did just straight up have the best games. The PS4 is 100% goated. The Xbox One, when it came out, it was the most expensive console for one thing and one thing only. That mother freaking Kinect was standard, and there was not a version of the Xbox you could buy that you couldn't buy that thing. Not only that, by this time I already had a Kinect and I knew I wouldn't use it like at all. I don't know if a lot of people even know this. When you're playing NBA 2K on one of these and you have your Xbox Kinect on it, if you make too loud of a noise in your My Career, you will get a technical foul. And I was getting technical fouls and I didn't even understand why. It's my freaking Kinect. It's listening. The thing that really separates the PS4 and the Xbox One are like basically exclusive games. At the end of the Xbox One's life, you did have the Xbox Game Pass. I'm counting that towards more of the next generation of game, because the Xbox Game Pass, when it first came out, was like really okay. I do like the Xbox One controller. It still takes batteries for some odd reason. Say I was transported right back to my body in late 2013, and I needed to choose between an Xbox One and a PS4, I would probably still choose the Xbox One, because I like Halo that much. But if you're not a Halo fanboy like me, there's absolutely no reason to get this over the PS4. You should get a PS4 every single time. Halo and Forza, that's all you're good for. I don't even think the Xbox One is goated. I think it's just a good console. What does Nintendo do well? That's right, gimmicks. What about if they already had a head start to a gimmick? Let's make our next home console a handheld. I love the Nintendo Switch. I think the Nintendo Switch is a great console. I hate Joy-Cons though. Joy-Cons are probably the worst modern controller. The one thing that Nintendo will always have over its competitors are literally the exclusives. Especially now when it seems like Sony's like, ooh, I'm greedy for money and all these PC people will buy my games for full price after they've been out on my other console for like 5 years, 10 years. As much as I think the Nintendo Corporation are absolutely scum of the earth, and they're programmers for their games and designers, they got like some of the cream of the crop. I love Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's probably my favorite Pokemon game ever. But if Pokemon was either a Sony or a Microsoft product, that game would have literally been released in like 2009. But anyways, it perfectly highlights Nintendo's best attributes: gaming on the go and gaming with your buddies on the couch. The online service for the Nintendo Switch is absolutely dog. I don't think the Nintendo Switch actually has any good online games, period. But gosh darn it, what a console. I think it's 100% goated already, even though it's only been out for like 5 years, I think. The Xbox Series X/S, I kind of like what Microsoft is doing for this. Like I told you, I'm an Xbox boy. I don't own one of these, or an S, for one reason and one reason only. I have a computer. There's not even such thing as an Xbox exclusive anymore. It's more of like a Microsoft exclusive. It only comes out for Xbox and PC. By the way, I am perfectly fine with. I really like the approach that the Xbox Series is for. It's really for the Game Pass. You want to play games on your TV and you want to play a lot of games? Dog, the Xbox Game Pass is actually ridiculous. That being said, it's a new console, and not only that, say you want one right now, it's not possible to get one for the actual retail price. As of right now, I'm putting it in good consoles. Next, we have the PS5, which honestly feels very, very similar to the Xbox Series X, except for it does actually have exclusive games, but it's still just too new. Do I believe the PS5 will beat the Xbox Series X? Like for this generation of console? I think it's going to be surprisingly tied up until like PlayStation's like game subscription service catches up to the Xbox Game Pass, where like when a brand new game comes out, it's immediately on the Game Pass. PlayStation said that they're not doing that. It's still way too new to judge if it's going to be goated or not. Next, we have the Steam Deck. I'm assuming it's going to be a good console. Steam Deck is actually a great idea. You probably already have all these games. You want to just play them on the go? Now, if only like people can get their hands on them when they actually want them. I'm going to put it in good consoles, but I actually think this will have the most variation of like this generations of consoles. This thing could move down or it could go all the way to the top. Also, I know you can't really see it. There's a slightly different colored black box, but that's the Steam Deck. Last, but certainly not least, we just have generic gaming computer. Now I'm putting it in 100% goated easy, and I understand it's hard for a decent amount of people to get into PC gaming. You need to learn a lot of stuff, or you need to know someone that knows a lot of stuff about computers to get a decent gaming computer and not get ripped off. But the one thing that I love about PC gaming, I mean, some people might think this as like a drawback. Like once you buy stuff for a computer, like you'll keep putting money into it, but your computer always gets better. To get like a decent computer right now, if you were to build your own, you probably would need to spend somewhere around like $700 to $750. Processors rarely need to be upgraded if you get a good one and you're just buying graphics cards. If you're not going for the extreme high-end graphics card, the mid-range graphics card, I'm talking like probably RX 6600, technically the RTX 3060. I'm talking that $250 to $300 range of a graphics card. You can upgrade that every 5 years and you'll stay ahead of the curve of consoles easily. I don't think I'll actually ever own a PlayStation or an Xbox again. This has completely replaced that for me. Nintendo makes a more niche product, so I would probably still continue buying Nintendo products, even though I hate their corporate guts. PC's going 100% goated, especially with Sony releasing like a lot of their games for PC now. And Xbox basically just giving up on exclusives and releasing their games also for PC. It's looking really good to be a PC gamer now. But this is the final tier list. Comment what your favorite game system is in the comments. I think mine might be a toss-up between the GameCube and the Xbox 360. We're a little bit small over here, so like finding my channel again might be a little bit of a struggle. So maybe hit that subscribe button. But if you're already subscribed, that's my mother freaking dog.